Hello again to anyone out there hearing this message. Thank you for listening to my story. And if anything, I hope that it encourages you all to share your stories because the world wants to hear them. The world needs to hear everyone's story. Every single person is just as important as the other. We each have a unique perspective. So, again, this is not about me. I'm putting myself in the public in numerous ways, including doing important physics work and sharing information about a groundbreaking formula that is an absolute gem for humanity and opens up a gorgeous future for all of us, for the planet, healing, abundance for all, free energy, more accurately known as 0-point energy. Wonderful, wonderful future. So I'm sharing this information so that anyone has questions about who I am and my story and how I got to now, this is the backdrop. So, and just in case anyone's wondering, this is selenite. This crystal is known in the metaphysical or the spiritual world as being very cleansing, purifying. So it will cleanse any other crystal. You can buy it in different shapes and forms. It's quite inexpensive, and it always stays clear and pure. It's the one crystal that I've ever heard of that does that, and it also clears other crystals. So just to let you know why I'm holding this, and I put my intention to speaking only truth 100%. My intention is to always be in alignment with the highest good for all 100%. And to speak what needs to be shared and what is helpful for others to hear. So I like to set that intention. Additionally, I'll say very clearly, my soul belongs to the one infinite creator. I control myself. I forge my own path. No one can forge it for me. The same is true for you. What we believe in our mind creates our reality. This is a holographic universe. So everything inside is what we experience around us. So now back to storytelling mode. I wanted to backtrack, and in the first video that I shared yesterday, I spoke of my early years in the state of Maine, the most northeastern part of America, with Canada to the north and the Atlantic Ocean to the east. And again, I was fortunate to have a home birth with a midwife and spent my early years on 40 acres of Maine woods with pine trees. And the house is near a lake called Patty's Pond, Pattee''S pond, small little lake. And so I just felt like sharing more about this gorgeous childhood, these early years from being born to age 6, growing up in just blissful nature, and revisit some of that, some of the beauty in those moments. So being that we were right near a lake and we walked down an old dirt road to get to that lake, and there was also a little path through the woods, a lovely little magical path that I love to walk. I just wanted to describe that land more for you, the land of my birth. So the lake there, we would, in the winter, it would freeze over and we would go ice skating. And I remember we had a sled, and we would get one of the adults. One time I remember my uncle in particular, we would sit in the sled and they would swing us around in circles on the sled, and that was really fun. And ice skating, and then the ice, I remember looking at it and clearing the snow off if there was snow on, and just seeing these cracks and seeing the dark blue or black color below the ice, and seeing these cracks that went down, but knowing that it was safe. But then we would hear, sometimes the cracks would make a sound and it would echo and it would ripple, and everyone could hear it echoing, and it was just absolutely incredibly magical. Up in Maine, the winters can be very, very cold. I was there about 5 years ago at a cabin on some land that my family owns, and going outside and looking at the thermometer, and it would literally say -30 Fahrenheit, which is roughly the same Celsius, if I remember correctly. Very, very cold. But growing up in that environment, now as an adult, I have zero fear of the cold because it was just normal for us as kids growing up. So it's something I enjoy testing myself, going out when it's very, very cold in just a sweater and light clothing, and seeing, can I relax my body into that deep, deep cold? And the silence of the Maine winters, absolute silence. And when it snows, the snowflakes, you can catch them on your mittens, and you look at these gorgeous crystalline structures, and just the quiet and peace and calm in that environment. I also remember one winter we had a really, really big snowfall, and going up outside in the snow as a kid, was up past my shoulders. It was maybe we had gotten about 2, 3 or more feet of snow. I think it was at least 2 for sure, 2 or 3. And just the excitement with that of my parents needing to shovel our way out the front door. And I suppose it's winter time, and perhaps that's why the winter memories are coming up now. And so winter in Maine. The trees, the pine trees, the boughs of the pine trees would be covered when it would snow. They would become weighed down with the snowfall. And I remember my joy as a child to touch the branch gently, and to release the snow, and the branch joyfully springing up into the air. And just how wonderful, just the simple pleasures in life. Just the magic of the simple pleasures. And so the house was on a long dirt road. This is why the town of Winslow was constantly battling my parents over the years, telling them that they couldn't live there, it was only for summer camps, and their reasoning was, if there was an emergency, we can't get a fire truck, or we can't get an ambulance to you. And my parents holding their ground and standing their ground and just saying, no, we're staying here. And so that long dirt road, there was a section of it that was at an angle, maybe something like this. It was the steepest part of the road, and that was a wonderful place where we would hike up, and then we would sled down that part of the road, and really, really, really fun going fast in the sled. And we would have some of the typical plastic sleds that a lot of kids use these days, but we also had one of the wooden sleds with the metal runners that you could actually steer in the front. And I remember that one was a little more intimidating, but that if I was comfortable with it, just feeling the power of being able to steer the sled more with the feet, or if we were on our belly, we would actually steer it with our hands. And so that was really fun. I also remember after my parents had broken up when I was about 6 years old, and my mom had bought a house in town in Winslow where we could walk to school, but we would spend half of the week with my dad and half the week with my mom. And so my dad was living at that house, the house where I was born, on this 40 acres in Maine. And he had these old Volkswagens. I think it was a brown Volkswagen Rabbit. And we would take turns, who got to sit in the front seat and whatnot. But at the top of the dirt road, when he would go to drive us to school in the morning, there was a particularly icy patch, and we would all chip in and say, are we gonna make it? Are we gonna make it? And then if we got over, we made it. But then sometimes we wouldn't make it, and so we would go in reverse and we would try again, but eventually we would make it. It's sort of like that children's book, if anyone's familiar with it, I think I can, the train, the blue train, I think I can, and it's like a little train that's carrying this big heavy cargo, but when she believes in herself, she can do it. She gets to the top of the hill or whatnot. I'm blanking on the name of that book, but it's a very popular American children's book. At least I hope it still is. It's a wonderful story about what we can do when we believe in ourselves truly and the power of that. So, magical memories in Maine as a child, and the winter and the magic of the winter and the dark. It gets in the middle of winter in Maine, it starts getting dark around 3, 4 in the afternoon. But again, the peace and the solitude and the quiet that comes with that environment. And really, taking it for granted in the way that it was just normal for me all those years. And it was only when I started, as an adult, started to live in other places, and I really started to appreciate having the 4 seasons and having grown up in such a unique, special environment way out there in the middle of the woods. So yeah, winters in Maine. The long dirt road. It was called the Pond Road. So, just really, really wonderful childhood. Growing up so connected to nature. So, sometimes if it rains, if it's maybe freezing rain, the top of the snow will develop sort of a thick crust, and then when you walk on it, the boots would go through the crust down through the snow, and just all the different changing conditions, or when it would be light, fluffy snow, or the wet snow that was really good for throwing snowballs, which my brother was quite talented at. I not so much as he. I suppose some lessons might have helped with that, but he and his friends would enjoy aiming those snowballs at my sister and I and other unsuspecting folks. And so we would build snow forts, both to have snowball fights and hide from behind the wall and to throw the snowballs from. But we would also build snow forts in the backyard, and we were warned about the dangers and to be very safe, and being told of how there were instances where, well, to put it in a positive light, just to be safe and to make sure that we could always breathe, and just to know that it was something to be careful of. But if done properly, building the strong walls with proper air holes, we made these beautiful, beautiful little snow forts, sort of like an igloo, I guess. And just again, the silence and the peace and quiet, being in one of those little snow structures. The snowflakes, being at school and going outside when it was snowing, and taking a black piece of construction paper to catch the snowflakes, and then be able to really look and have that black background as a contrast for the beautiful crystalline structures, and learning about how every single snowflake was perfectly unique. What an amazing concept with all those snowflakes. Really? Everyone is unique? Wow, that's hard to even believe is true, but yet we were seeing it with our own eyes. And yeah, going on the sleigh ride, we were definitely singing Jingle Bells. And I think it was actually a horse-drawn sleigh. Another magical memory etched in my mind forever, of the horses pulling the sleigh with all these children on it, and the way that the snow sparkles. It was a sunny day, and when it's light, fluffy snow like that, and the sun, the rays of sun touch the surface of the snow, and these rainbow pixels of light of the snow refracting the sunlight, and just these gorgeous little rainbow shimmer pixels of light. anyone who's ever been to Maine or been in an environment like that knows what I'm talking about. It's really quite gorgeous scene to behold, almost like little stars shimmering in the surface of the snow. Snowmen, snow women too. We were very good at doing both. And I remember one in particular was quite involved, and my mom even put the wool, it was a green plaid wool jacket. I can see it in my mind's eye with the zipper. We even dressed the snow woman with a wool jacket so she'd be warm, with a carrot for the nose and black stones for the eyes. And it was usually sticks for the arms, and usually some buttons up the front with stones. And perhaps we would craft the shoes, I think, out of stone typically. Snow. Snowmen, snow women, snow angels. One of the funnest parts of a fresh snowfall is running out in the morning as children and lying in the snow and creating these angel figures by waving our hands and feet and then standing up to see the angel wings and the beautiful flowing skirt or flowing robes of the angel. Snow angels. Often let's sort of moving ahead to when perhaps starting to become more like spring, but then there's still snow, and it's a really great time of year to have a bonfire and burn brush. And I remember, that's the time of year when it starts to get a little more light, that the sap starts flowing in the trees, and Maine is a really wonderful place for maple syrup. And my parents had these friends, just to give you all a backdrop, my parents were hippies. In the 1970s and 80s, there was what was called a back to the land movement. And these hippies in their 20s and 30s and 40s, and really anyone that wanted to reconnect with the land, went to places like Maine to grow food and to connect with nature. And there's an expression, chop wood, carry water, as tasks that you need to do every day just to stay warm and just to have drinking water and water for cooking and cleaning and all of the above. And so we had running water. It was well water, but my parents did have a big chimney there. It's actually called a Russian fireplace. There's a man in Maine, I'm not sure if he's still around, but he would custom build these Russian fireplaces. And so in the front, you'd light a fire, but it had all these chambers where the smoke would go through the bricks. And so it would warm up all these bricks so that you burn the fire really hot, but then over time, those bricks would just continue to radiate the heat into the house. So a very efficient way to, especially with something like wood, where sometimes people will have a wood stove, but a lot of the smoke is just going directly out of the house immediately. But having some kind of system where that heat can be captured and radiated into the house is quite an efficient, lovely design. And it was covered with soapstone, and in the winter we would put orange peels on the top of the soapstone, and they would fill the kitchen and the house with this wonderful citrus aroma. Yeah, Christmas time, of course, being quite a magical time. I know for sure some years we would chop down our own tree and choose the tree, pick the tree, make the Christmas ornaments, thread the cranberries, and decorate the tree with the threaded cranberries. Or also we would thread popcorn, and then that would be a garland on the Christmas tree, and making gingerbread, little gingerbread men and gingerbread women, and gingerbread houses. And we did actually make our own Christmas ornaments made out of dough one year. and then we baked the dough. We cut it out with cookie cutters, and then we baked the ornaments, and then we painted them. And yeah, such magical memories of just something as simple as creating a Christmas ornament. So, but yeah, back to when it would warm up and the sap would start flowing. And I remember my parents, yeah, some of their hippie back to the lander friends who actually had helped convert that camp into a house with my parents. I remember watching as they were doing what is like stucco on the ceiling, and it looked like these little rainbows, and with whatever tool they were using, it was little rainbows over and over again. And so those same friends that helped convert that house at Patty's Pond, they also had their own piece of land and their own houses that they built out in a town called Canaan, Canaan. And I really loved visiting those friends, and their houses were just beautiful, made from wood with the wood stove. And I remember being there once for a gathering, and they were passing around a plastic gallon jug of the fresh maple sap, and just taking a swig of it, and wow, so delicious, so delicious. And I thought, gosh, why do people even need to make maple syrup? This is just so delicious as it is. The pure maple sap and the vitality of the tree and the nourishment from the tree, the blood of the tree literally nourishing us and embedding our energy into the whole grove of the maple trees by receiving that gift and taking it into our beingness. And the magic of just these simple little acts of connecting with nature and receiving the abundance from nature in the land around us. And how can we do that more? Even if it's just observing a bird or pigeon on the street. Beautiful white pigeons that I've been seeing lately. Or a yellow bird that my friend saw earlier today, which always reminds me of my grandparents and their love for goldfinches. So, Maine, winter memories in Maine. Yeah, so being around the bonfire, passing the maple sap around. And cross-country skiing. The winter sports. Growing up in Maine, it's a hard place to be if you don't do winter sports. So we had cross-country skis, and there, with all the land there, it was a wonderful place to go cross-country skiing. And for anyone who's never tried it before, it's a very peaceful activity. You really can get a really good workout, and if you want to move fast, but you can take your time and enjoy the peace and the solitude of the Maine woods or the snow, wherever it may be. And by going slow like that, it's a wonderful way to see the little footprints of the bunnies and the mice and the chipmunks, and looking at the footprints and just wondering, oh, which animal is that? And having a good guess, but sometimes not really being sure. But just knowing their activity by seeing their little footprints, and then even sometimes seeing the hole where they came out of or went back into. And seeing the animals in the winter was always special. Knowing there were bears in the woods hibernating. So cross-country skiing, and you can actually get a little bit of a thrill whenever you go down a little hill, because cross-country skiing overall is typically a lot of work, or it's just very peaceful and gentle, a lot of gliding. But there are times when you need to go up a hill, and in doing so, you put the skis like that, they call it the herringbone, and you walk like this up the hill, sort of on the edges. It can be slightly awkward, but not too much. And then you get to the top, even if it's just a little hill, just going down that little hill and having that fun little woo was really quite delightful. And really, really a fun activity, cross-country skiing. Just really great way to move the body. And my mom years later had a Nordic track, which is sort of it's like a gym version of that with wooden skis that go, in place, and these cords that you pull like this. It was quite a popular fitness device for a few years there. So yeah, cross-country skiing, ice skating on the pond, sledding down the hills, and it's about maybe 11, 10, 11. Gosh, I'm not really sure. My mom might remember better. But we started to learn downhill skiing. Again, being that Maine has winters with a lot of snow, there's quite a number of ski mountains. And my mom had taken me, it was a trip, just her and I. Her and I went on, I know she did trips with my brother and sister too, but her and I did for sure. I know we went to nature together and mountains. I really loved hiking and camping, so her and I would go on these solo journeys, perhaps more than my brother and sister. I'm not really sure. I'll have to ask them about it. But one time her and I went to a town in Maine called Bethel, 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 Maine. And the ski mountain there, Mount Abrams, Abrams. And that was where I really learned to downhill ski the first time. Another really magical town in Maine. I'm pretty sure it's close to the border of New Hampshire, sort of over in the western part of the state. And it's a relatively small mountain. They have a lot of cross-country skiing there as well. It's very gentle slopes, probably not many black diamonds, but a great place for someone to learn how to ski. And we got a little hotel there, and I think it even had a hot tub, and it was a really special, magical trip that we took. And that was where I learned how to downhill ski. And then after that, we went frequently to a mountain called, it was Eaton Mountain, Eaton, or Mount Eaton. I'm pretty sure I'm getting that right. That was the local small ski area. I think it was about 30 or 40 minutes from us. And they did have a few black diamonds. Again, pretty small scale, nothing major, but wonderful place for kids to learn downhill skiing. And they had the little lodge, where we would go keep our lunch and keep all of our clothes that we weren't wearing, and that was where we would go to dry off or take breaks or get some hot drink like hot cocoa or something warm to drink, and maybe take a break and warm up. And I can't remember if there was a fire. If there was a fire, we would sit by the fire for sure, but they had food there for sale, and very humble, very simple, nothing fancy at all. But that meant that the lift tickets were more affordable. And one really fun thing about that mountain, that I think a fair number of mountains do this as well, but they had night skiing, and I remember trying that for the first time, and oh, that was really fun. They'd light up the mountain with these lights, and having the stars out and having it be dark, and it just was a different environment, and just really, really wonderful. And going up on the chairlift, and again, having that be sort of peaceful, gentle ride up the mountain, and seeing the trees covered with snow or ice, and these beautiful pine trees with this dark green shining through, or the birch trees with that white bark, and the blue of the snow that will sometimes come through. You see this blue color, really, really beautiful if the conditions are right. So yeah, winter memories in Maine, and just such a wonderful childhood, and so grateful for those years. I've thanked my parents numerous times, and I think my brother and sister have as well, for allowing us to have that magical childhood in nature, and learning what it means to live in nature, and to be close to earth and the animals and the trees. So, all right, well, I think that's good for now. I hope anyone listening to this enjoys it. This was really fun to get to share some of these beautiful memories of my childhood, of which there are so many. and really hope that this encourages you all, anyone out there who wants to share your stories. I promise you, your stories are important. The world wants to hear your story, your stories. As consciousness, all we're really doing is writing fun stories. And when we get to share them with other people, then they can sort of see through our mind of what that would have been like to have that experience. And so we can share our experience with others by telling stories. And it's a really fun and wonderful thing to do. And I'm interested in hearing your story, whoever you are, wherever you are. Thanks again for listening. And just a reminder, I am not important in the scheme of things. Each one of us is like a tiny pixel of sand, a tiny pixel of dust, even smaller. And the wind could blow me away tomorrow, wipe me off the face of the earth, and everything would be just fine. Everything would go on as if nothing had changed. So remembering that humility, to be smaller than a blade of grass, as one of my friends so lovingly likes to say, but yet be flexible like a tree. And when we can make ourselves very, very small, and we find that part of ourselves that is very authentic and unique and tiny, 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 when we have the ability to do that, it allows our energy to become massive and our aura to really expand. Because this experience, this human experience we're having, is on some level a complete illusion. Physicists talk about the holographic universe. It's literally a physics theory where this experience is just a hologram that our consciousness is creating in every now moment. So I encourage you to practice feeling very small, going within, finding that tiny little pixel of light that is self. For me, it's a portal to God's source love, this one infinite creator. This is how we fractal out of into beingness through our connection, our divine source connection to the one infinite creator. So I encourage anyone listening or watching this to remember that tiny, tiny part of yourself. And by making ourselves very, very small, tapping into this ability, we can experience our grandeur and our connection to the whole, because that is what makes us grand, as tiny little pixels of consciousness. Okay. Sending love, because all is love. It's the only thing that's real. This is just a game we play. And again, I very much humbly appreciate anyone caring to hear my story. And reminder, the world wants to hear your stories too. I promise you. They're just as important as mine or anyone else's. 100%. Okay.